welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We are your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is May 16th, 2017. Today is a Tuesday. The breaking news for us here at Resistance Chicks is we wanted to bring you, because a lot of you have said you need to get this out there.
The family investigator
for the Seth Rich death.
Exactly, has had contacts with the FBI.
Yep.
And with some police officers in DC saying, the FBI agent looked him in the eye and said, listen, I have seen on his laptop communications with WikiLeaks. And the police officer said, we were told to shut this case down. He was shot in the back in a supposed botched robbery and
nothing was stolen.
From.
As a DNC staffer, the conspiracy theories online have taken a life of their own. But today, Fox 5 has learned there is new information that could prove these theorists are, in fact, right. New information from the family's private investigator suggests there is tangible evidence on Seth Rich's laptop that confirms he was communicating with WikiLeaks prior to his death. Now, the question is, why has DC police, as the lead agency on the investigation for the past 10 months, insisted this was a botched robbery when till this day there is no evidence to suggest that? The Rich family hired Rod Wheeler, a former MPD homicide detective, to run a parallel investigation into their son's death. Wheeler says he believes there's a cover-up and the police department has been told to back down from the investigation.
The police department nor the FBI has been forthcoming. They haven't been cooperating at all. I believe that the answer to solving his death lies on that computer, which I believe is either at the police department or either at the FBI. I've been told both.
But you have sources at the FBI saying that there is information that could link Seth Rich to WikiLeaks?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's confirmed. Actually, I have a source inside the police department that has looked at me straight in the eye and said, Rod, we were told to stand down in this case, and I can't share any information with you. Now, that's highly unusual for a murder investigation, especially from a police department. Again, I don't think it comes from the chief's office, but I do believe there is a correlation between the mayor's office and the DNC, and that's the information that's going to come out tomorrow.
And a full report with the new breaking details and this information will air tomorrow morning on Fox News Channel. Sean?
So I'm going to take you to Fox News here.
News alert, a brand new bombshell in the murder of that guy right there, a DNC staffer. An investigator now says Seth Rich was in contact with WikiLeaks.
Not only that, he claims there's been a law enforcement cover-up.
Well, Griff Jenkins live in Washington with these breathtaking, breaking developments. Griff.
Brian Ainsley and Steve, good morning. Breaking indeed and developing at a rapid pace. Bombshell new evidence of a former DNC staffer you just showed there, Seth Rich, suggests he was in communications with WikiLeaks prior to his murder last summer. Let me take you back. Here in the nation's capital, it was last July. DNC staffer Seth Rich was shot and killed on the way home from a bar in a trendy Northwest neighborhood here. Police initially saying that they believed it was a botched robbery, but questions remain with the investigation still open. Now, a year later, according to a parallel investigation by former DC police homicide detective and Fox News contributor Rod Wheeler, there's evidence that Rich had contact with WikiLeaks. That evidence on a laptop belonging to Seth Rich showing he was talking with WikiLeaks. Wheeler says this smells like a cover-up.
I want to find out who caused that man's death so we can put them behind bars. But if there's somebody in politics, if there's somebody in government, whether it's in the mayor's office or anywhere else in the city that's involved, you better believe they're going to be dragged in and questioned.
Wheeler sources inside the police department also saying that they were told to stand down on the case. Police not confirming any of this with us. I've been calling the PIO number here at the DC Police Department. That was at 6 a.m. and I have contacts from private crime stories. Nobody telling me anything. We're going to keep hunting this. It's worth noting, guys, at the time of Rich's death, his wallet was not taken, and he actually went to the hospital. He was still alive at the hospital where he died. We know nothing about what may have transpired between police investigators and Rich, but obviously Rod Wheeler looking into it. I've known Rod for a long time, and I know he's been looking into this case for a long time in a parallel investigation. This is simply developing, guys, and we will have more on it later.
Not a high crime neighborhood, right?
Not at all. It's in the Bloomingdale neighborhood, one of D.C.'s, in fact, D.C.'s most popular neighborhood with bars and restaurants. Very unusual and shocking when that murder occurred last July.
So the keys are in his computer.
Could be.
Okay, so obviously there's some spin zone things going on right now.
Well, of course.
So I wanted to. This is a tweet from Joe Biggs from InfoWars. That time, Podesta said he'd make an example out of a leaker. He says this was from an email on the WikiLeaks email that said, "I'm definitely for making an example of a suspected leaker, whether or not we have a real basis for it." Which is very interesting that he would say whether or not we have a real basis for it. Now, of course, there's a spin doctor coming out from the Democratic side.
No kidding.
Trying to spin this, and he's actually worked in crisis communications on his LinkedIn. It says that's what he does, crisis communications for the Democratic Party. He's publicly denying the revelation, like he knows, right? Because he's got a source, right? That murdered DNC staffer Seth Rich was in contact with WikiLeaks, of course, because he's got it. Like he knows anything else, you know what I mean? Last night, Fox DC broke the story about Rod Wheeler coming out, and then this other guy comes out and says his name is Bauman. He said through BuzzFeed, of course, they're their other, here's your spin doctor,
right?
DJ here. He says that he's spoken to the family spokesperson, and as we've seen through the past year of unsubstantiated claims, we see no facts, we have seen no evidence, we have been approached with no emails, and only learned about this when contacted by the press. Notice how BuzzFeed's story about Bauman's denial does not mention that Bauman has close ties to the Democratic Party. Obviously it didn't fit their narrative, and as InfoWars previously reported, when he initially attempted to shut down conspiracy theories surrounding Rich's unexplained murder, Bauman's LinkedIn page lists his role as managing a crisis communications and full-service public relations firm, providing strategic communications advice to Democratic candidates and labor unions. So obviously people are trying to bury this story, and this is connected to our next story, where we go and we're going to delve into the Washington Post breaking news of Trump giving some classified information.
What she means is why it's linked is the fact that this story broke, and then an hour later they came out with this kind of big, hey, look over here, Trump has been leaking these things about the Russian communications and all this stuff, and then you just
attention to the man behind the
exactly. It was really just a diversion. They've been kind of holding this, I think, as an ace in the hole card, and then it comes out a few hours later. Well, you know what? It really wasn't what we said it was, but we had to make a big bang.
Exactly.
Because we had to divert the attention off of this.
It's all a diversion. So
it's always a diversion.
There's a lot of things going on right now on Twitter. Twitter kind of exploded between the Seth Rich story and the Washington Post story, going back and forth. People who are tweeting about the Washington Post story are hashtagging, what about Seth Rich? This is our real story here. We're going to talk about the Washington Post story. It's a non-story. It's fake news. It doesn't hold water in a glass. It's a it's stupid, but this is a real story. Yeah. And
it's kind of exciting because we had covered this, I think, a couple of months ago. Yeah. The idea that Seth Rich's death was suspect. Right. And so to have it kind of confirmed and have it come out, it really does feel good. And for the family, I have to give huge props to them for hiring their own investigator, knowing.
But here's the thing: the dad is coming out saying that this isn't a thing.
That's very interesting. I know. So I'm wondering which part of the family is.
So the family, I don't know if they're just like close DNC people or if they have been sold a bag of goods or something. This is, there's a lot of rumor mill. This is rumor mill happening right now. Okay. So my first thought was exactly what you thought. Oh, great, the family's coming out, right?
Yeah, right. But they're the ones that hired this guy and what he's coming out with.
But also, Bauman's working with the family too. So Bauman is talking to the family and trying to spin this thing in such a way. I do know that his dad said, he was always a dreamer. He wanted to change the world and things like that. There were some pictures I wanted to show you of. He's an interesting fella, right here. I think he liked his country. He was patriotic. And if he was an idealist in any manner, then he saw some, maybe he was a Sanders supporter.
Well, it's kind of like Lee and I say, it really doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. There's corruption on both sides of the aisle. And so the fact that this guy was in it and he saw corruption on his own side of the aisle and was like, hey, this needs to be. And so he went to a source like WikiLeaks, which really is unbiased.
Oh, absolutely.
They just are about revealing corruption at any stage, at any side of the aisle, whatever. So it just really goes to show his character.
Well, I tweeted out a picture today that said DNC, once you're in, you can't get out.
Yeah, it is kind of like
bloody,
a gang.
like a bloody, dripping blood. And so it's kind of like if he's in there and he's a progressive or a Bernie Sanders supporter,
Right.
and he realizes, through these emails
Sure.
that Sanders, these particular emails were what led to Debbie Wasserman Schultz having to step down, to the Sanders supporters saying burn or bust.
Right.
They just did not vote for Hillary Clinton
Right.
because of this. And so one tweet came out and said, see this face? Meet Russia. That's your, and this is in the slightly conspiracy theory category. Obviously it hasn't been proven fact, but this is more tangible. This makes more sense, and there's more evidence that this person is the leaker more than Russia. There's no evidence with Russia.
Exactly.
But if they're, if we could somehow see the
Well, and it
emails
makes
on the
total
computer.
sense why they would have to kill him, because it would have
It just wouldn't work
killed their
anymore.
narrative for Russia.
Exactly. You just can't. Like, he had to go.
Right.
So either way, and then somebody said Russia killed him. So there's a lot speculating around this right now. But we all need to keep digging. Keep sending us your links on this story. We're going to keep digging. Obviously, this is a developing story. So.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that it makes total sense though.
And
I
for some reason, Clinton's people and the DNC really did take this guy out because he had sent those emails to WikiLeaks. You guys, come on.
It is kind of huge. It is the end. But what I was saying was, it makes total sense about his family, because he's a Democrat. Usually you're kind of part of the party that your family is.
Right.
So if they're kind of entrenched in that, even though maybe they did hire this private investigator, my wheels are just turning as we're standing here. I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, unfortunately, what you've uncovered, and I think they had a good heart behind it, obviously, or they would have hired the investigator to find the truth. But unfortunately, sometimes the truth hurts.
Right.
So, all right, you guys, this is Lee and Michelle signing off for Resistance Chicks, where it is not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Fake 3 and Resistance Chicks. Ring the bell for notifications. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. We love you, God loves you, and God bless. And justice for Seth.
I was cold, all alone. No place for home every day. So afraid, but you called my name.